Good morning. Thank you all for being here, either in person and virtually. My name is Luke Schlegel, co-president and CFO at Collective Measures, and I'm excited to welcome you all to this year's Discover event. As you know, many of you have been here before, but this is our annual event designed to inspire fresh thinking and collaboration with others across the industry on how to approach new and changing situations that we all face. I hope you've all had a good time networking over coffee. I do want to thank the Trade Desk, our programmatic partner, who did sponsor the coffee this morning. So we've got a great lineup planned for today. First thing will be our keynote presentation, and that's Influence at the Speed of Change. Then after the keynote, there will be a panel discussion where we've got 4 marketers that will be discussing everything from AI to how they're putting the consumer at the center of their marketing efforts. That will be hosted by our other co-president, Allison Bakken. So from there, after we do the keynote and the panel discussion, we'll be splitting up into 3 breakout sessions. So there's 2 sessions and you have 3 different breakouts that you can choose from for each of those sessions. What you can do is we've got one talking about tailored content and strategic planning. So that's visibility does not equal influence. Another one that we have will be an AI session, which will give you a clear understanding of how to integrate AI into your marketing practices. Finally, if you're looking to learn a little bit more about video, there's one that will be hosted for Video Myths Busted. And I think the rooms for those will be around, for those of you in person, the rooms are, there's one to my right and then 2 in the back. So you'll be able to go to those, whichever one you choose for those 2 sessions. And then finally, new addition today, compared to last year's, there'll be anybody who's here in person, there'll be a networking lunch. So after we finish the 2 breakout sessions, you'll be able to grab box lunch, and we'll be sitting at these tables to just give you more chance to network with other marketers from who are here today. So what we'll do now is let's get started with our keynote. I'd like to welcome 3 of our VPs, our vice presidents from Collective Measures. We've got our VP of Media and Connection Strategy, Matt Larson, our VP of Brand and Consumer Engagement, Heather Riss-Murphy, and our VP of Data Analytics and Engineering, Mike Baranowski. So.
Well, welcome everybody. I think I'm on here. Can everybody hear me all right? Welcome to this beautiful room. Look at this place. It's amazing, isn't it? So today, we're going to talk a little bit about change. And most of you in the room are marketers, and as such, you've likely learned how to embrace change. It's our business. It moves incredibly quick. We evolve at the speed of culture and technology. What was innovative last year may already be antiquated. How many of you in the audience are using platforms like BeReal? Do any of you own an NFT? How many meetings have you done in the metaverse this week? When was the last time you talked about your cookieless targeting strategy? Well, despite this entourage of fads and trends, there are real impactful changes going on in our business. Our world and our industry is evolving quickly and taking us to new exciting places. What was once thought of as just science fiction alongside hoverboards and flying cars is now quickly becoming a reality. Advertising is more predictive, personalized, and dynamic than ever before. And our toolbox as marketers is expanding at an incredible rate as our business continues to change. 20 years ago, this was changing our industry. Search, or more broadly, digital. Digital measurement was providing us with something that we had never had before. We had immediate results for our actions. With ROI in hand, we were getting more alignment from our CFOs. We were high-fiving with our colleagues about all the impact we were driving. We were testing and learning faster than ever before. But a lot has changed in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, these 3 companies weren't in the Fortune 100. In fact, Google hadn't even cracked the Fortune 500 yet. Today, they all hold top 10 spots and make up nearly 15% of the S&P 500. And us at Collective Measures, we had one employee, embracing this change and starting something that today has brought everybody here in this room together, as well as all the people online. And the media mix looked a lot different 20 years ago, too. It looked something like this. It was dominated by TV and print. Internet advertising, as we called it back then, only comprised of about 6% of the total media mix. YouTube had just launched its first video. Facebook didn't have ads on its platform. The iPhone wasn't invented yet. Flash forward to today, and now digital comprises of over 80% of a typical digital media, or a media mix. Some companies have 100% digital media mix. And it's not just increased in size and scale, it's also become infinitely more complex. Because it's not just digital, we have all these different channels. We have digital video, paid social, search, retail, display, audio, a plethora of different sub-channels like CTV, OLV, influencers, PMAX, and podcasts, and hundreds, if not thousands, of individual publishers and technology companies, all creating an incredibly complex space for us to operate within. And this complexity was driven by an era of rapid growth. We've seen social go from the dorm room to the mainstream and now become a ubiquitous part of our society. Television's now gone digital. We finally were able to cut the cord. No more cable bill. But instead, we have 6 or 7 different streaming services that we have to pay for in case we want to watch our favorite shows. And performance media has evolved. Now there's over 300 retail media networks vying for our ad dollars alongside Meta and Google. And this pace of growth, it's all been driven by the advent of digital, or internet advertising. Prior to this, media consumption was relatively static. For over 50 years, we had TV, radio, print, and out-of-home. Now, seemingly every year, there's a new technology, a new trend, a new tactic that we have to quickly learn and incorporate into our media plans. And it shouldn't surprise us that much that the rate of change has accelerated so much with digital. If we look at Moore's Law, and for those of you in the room that don't know what Moore's Law is, Gordon Moore was the co-founder of Intel, and he hypothesized that computing power would double every 2 years alongside the advancement of microchips. And this law is held relatively true all the way since back in the 70s. And now today, the biggest disruptor in our industry, and perhaps our society since the internet, is upon us with AI. AI is destined to accelerate our rate of change once again. Rather than technology doubling every 2 years, that time frame has been shortened to perhaps as little as 7 months. That means that our rate of change is poised to potentially grow at 4 times the rate that it once did. So what are we going to do, right? With all this continued change, it's more and more difficult for us to effectively strategize. We continuously make new constructs to try to depict these complex consumer journeys that we're all working with. And you guys have likely seen many of these. We have things like McKinsey's loyalty loop. We have something called the bow tie funnel, which is kind of one funnel connected to another funnel. And because our job as marketers is never done, we invented something called the marketing infinity loop. But seemingly, we keep coming back to this. The old trusty funnel, right? I'm sure many of you are using it. And it's natural that we try to evolve the traditional sales funnel because it was actually invented all the way back in the 1800s. It was used as a sales tool. It was invented at a time when TV and the internet didn't even exist. And due to that, throughout my career, I have heard, much like I've heard about cookies or last touch attribution, that the funnel's dead. But we keep coming back to it, it seems. Why is that? I believe it's because our job as marketers is to take all of this complexity, all of this noise, and simplify it for our executive teams. Use it to make sense of our budgeting. Use it to craft a marketing plan that can pull consumers from awareness all the way through conversion. So I don't think that the funnel's necessarily dead. We will probably use it to simplify our story for many years to come. But the way that us in this room, as marketing and media professionals, leverage it and harness it, that's what we should consider evolving. First, take all this complexity that I've been talking about, this myriad of different channels and logos and sub-channels and all of this noise. There's an opportunity to simplify the way that we think about this. If rather than thinking it from our perspective as the planner, the media buyer, we think about this from the consumer perspective. And when we do, there's an opportunity to compartmentalize this into a few different disparate channel activity, or to compartmentalize this disparate activity into a few succinct consumer behaviors. And those are streaming, scrolling, searching, and shopping, or the 4 S's. Now, while this helps to simplify all that complex channel landscape for us, you may still have a desire to simply align these behaviors now to the funnel. And I've seen this hundreds of times. We put streaming or video up at the top, scrolling and searching, that kind of seems like consideration activities. We're going to put that near the middle. And shopping, of course, is at the bottom. And this is where I believe that we really need a fundamental change. We need to stop marrying channels to consumption behaviors. To illustrate why, I'm just going to go ahead and knock the funnel over here. And this isn't to advocate for you all to start using different sideways funnels. We don't need any more constructs to deal with. But rather to illustrate that these behaviors are actually all occurring simultaneously across the entire path to purchase. So the funnel was never designed to arbitrarily assign different channels to them. If you remember, it was invented before any of these channels even ever existed. It was designed, however, to orient our objectives, help us qualify our audience, in size and quality, help define, importantly, our creative messaging based on where they are relative to their consumer journey and their relationship with our brand. How many of you have used Amazon as a product comparison tool? Looking at it to perhaps compare specs, read reviews, evaluate price points. Or perhaps you've been on Instagram and you've been scrolling and you've seen a pair of sneakers or an outfit that caught your eye. And within the matter of minutes, you became aware of a brand, considered purchasing it, and ultimately did. Oh, yeah. Or maybe you're sitting down one Sunday afternoon to watch the Vikings game, and a commercial comes on the TV, and even though you had no idea that this glorious, wonderful thing existed, you decided right then and there that you did need a shakaroni pizza. Looking at you, Carl. The point is, you can create impact with any channel at any point and across the entire journey. But to do so, we need to evolve our approach to communication strategy. We need to leverage these behaviors to maximize impact. And we maximize impact by creating influence. So how do we create influence? There's 3 primary ways. 1, we can capture attention. You guys are probably familiar with the Liquid Death case study, where they leveraged a very unconventional creative strategy to capture our attention. Rather than the traditional mountains and rivers and blue logos of Aquafina, they have this very eye-catching strategy that captured everybody in the water category's attention and really turned the ready-to-drink water category upside down. We can be relevant through culture or contextual alignment, showing up with solutions to the problems that your consumers have, infiltrating microcultures, or even becoming part of major cultural moments that can help your brand resonate with your customers. And we can create trust. And creating trust isn't about just what we say or what we do. If you look at this tag, "You're in good hands," that invokes a lot of trust, right? But not every company can say this. They're able to say this and make this claim, and we believe it, because they've spent a lot of time and effort building a relationship with their consumer and helping them grow their presence of their brand. And ultimately, if we're able to drive influence across the path to purchase, we will be able to create business impact. So in the next 20 years, the brands that will win are the brands that can move quickly, adapt to this change, and perhaps most importantly, leverage data to create influence that leads to this business impact. I might just share with you how we look at this data.
To garner the revenue Matt just referenced, we need to be influential at each phase of the consumer journey. Fortunately for us, most media today were able to capture some sort of signal to determine if we are in fact engaged or influential with our consumer. Challenge today is going to be making sense of those signals and being able to act upon them. In 2025, data collection capabilities coupled with the use of AI are allowing us to be more informed about how consumers engage with us than at any other point in history. How consumers interact with our brands is not nearly as neat and clean as we orient the funnel or how we imagine a consumer might navigate their purchase. Consumers don't have 3 orderly touch points before they decide to make a purchase. If we think only about the funnel construct, where we assume it's a clean, linear path to purchase, where we message the right time, the right audience, the right call to action, outside of those perceived funnel values, if we continue to only think about relying on single channels playing a single role, we'll be missing out of loads of opportunities to gain influence with other channels throughout the journey. In reality, the path to purchase is much more chaotic and haphazard. Today, users engage with multiple channels, repeat channels, switch channels, all before engaging with the very first channel before they make a purchase. This is exactly why the funnel has existed for over 100 years. The funnel is an easy way to distill down the intent of our tactics and simplify how we want consumers to engage with us. However, there's so much more to the story. By aggregating consumer journeys, we can make better sense of the chaotic manner in which consumers are making a purchase. Customer data today allows us to visually prove where each channel has a role in awareness, consideration, and conversion. And we can do this through what are called influence maps. Influence maps illustrate where the 4 behaviors, streaming, scrolling, searching, and shopping, as well as the underlying tactics, channels, are occurring against what is thought of as the traditional funnel. Here we're looking at actual client data collected from media clicks, impressions, website activity, with the touch points broken evenly to represent where within the traditional funnel they would have occurred. This demonstrates where we have the opportunity to influence a consumer in their path to purchase with channels not typically associated with their place in the funnel. We use similar data collection and modeling capabilities to that of attribution to illustrate this. For this specific client, we're looking at awareness or touch points that would have happened in the first third of a user's journey. We see streaming behaviors accounting for 12% of touch points, scrolling 32%, searching 53%, and then maybe most surprisingly, shopping behaviors, which are generally thought of as lower funnel conversion activities, are playing a role in awareness at 3%. We also see this on the conversion side, where streaming, most notably again, plays a role late in the funnel, converting users at 31%. These percentages are going to vary for your consumers, but I assure you, you will see channels contributing outside of their generalized funnel position. By rethinking each channel's objective relative to where in the customer journey it falls, it'll allow you to refine your media plans, targeting the right audience with the right message and call to action. It'll allow you to focus on the objective of the media based on where the consumer actually is, and then coupled with AI, we'll be better suited to find trends and insights to make sense of these complicated paths. So we can take this a step further, layering back in the channels and tactics and campaign level data within each of the behaviors. This is where the information truly becomes actionable. We can make decisions in planning to better suit the objective and influence and be more influential at each touch point. We may identify budget shifts by supporting non-traditional upper funnel tactics or message testing better suited to drive conversion for what are thought of as more traditional upper funnel channels. Layering in audience segments like buyers and non-buyers adds in another layer of complexity, but also provides a deeper layer of insight. Here we're looking at the same influence map, but now we're looking at how buyers and non-buyers are interacting with the media. There are dramatic differences in the 2 journeys, which should be accounted for as you plan. For non-buyers, in this example, TikTok plays a role in awareness as we would expect, creating authenticity-driven content that tells stories about your brand may be most impactful here. However, we also see, for buyers, TikTok playing a more significant role lower in the funnel. Diving into these specific campaigns and developing campaigns that are more actionable than aspirational might be best suited for these touch points. As the funnels evolve to influence maps, so too are the tools that we need to organize and make sense of our data. Gartner estimates that by 2028, 33% of all enterprise software applications will include agentic AI, which are AI systems that are designed to act, not just reason. This is up from 1% in 2024. This really illustrates what Matt was talking about earlier and the elevated growth rate. AI is the perfect tool to allow us to make sense of these complicated consumer journeys, organizing and analyzing them in ways that allow us to take action in the way the funnel had in the past. Specific to media, there's three clear use cases today that it should be used for. First, AI can be used to identify trends or anomalies in our data. This will make our analysis much more focused right from the onset. Second, AI is being used to enable predictive analytics. With the use of and ingestion of larger, more granular data sets, the modeled outcomes become much more reliable. For years, platforms like Google Ads and Google Analytics have been using modeled data in their results. The rise of these synthetic data sets will become much more ubiquitous. And finally, ad creation. So because influence maps will allow you to be more targeted with your messaging, the need for additional ad creative will be needed as well. This is already proving to be a great use case for AI. AI can also then be used to determine what ad creatives are working best by appending additional attributes like colors of ads or the imagery used within the ads so that you can further refine the ad creative that you're using in ways that we previously weren't able to do. It'll be our job with AI to develop the questions we want to answer and recognize where best to use it.
All right, so if we all have access to this data and technology, then why aren't all brands winning? It's because we still operate as if the journey is linear, which is okay, but it needs to expand, and we think about channels aligned to one objective, when what we really need to do is start designing for influence. And we need to do that by leveraging and expanding the data that we have, so think audience research, performance data, in new and different ways so we can capture that attention, that relevance, and that trust. This is how we plan today at the speed of change. This is how we win. So let's talk about the how. Fortunately for us, designing for influence means that we need to take just a humble, yet very important revisit to marketing and communications fundamentals. Now, unfortunately for us, we all know this, but it's oftentimes those very fundamentals that are the hardest to prioritize and to maintain. But we must try, because this is how we win today. We design for influence when we know our audiences, when we understand who they are, what they do, their motivations and their mindsets, and how they interact with the world around them. We design for influence when we understand their behaviors, of course, but it's more about synthesizing those consumption behaviors to understand how they perform, not with just in one objective, but across the funnel. It is time to break the silos and work together. This is how we identify the channels that people are going to be the most influenced while using. The opportunity is right for that. And finally, and this is likely the make or break of influence, is that we have to tailor the content experience and the messaging to all of that, to the audience, to the behavior, to the channel, to the objective, and make sure it works together. A media plan is only as good as what's on the other end of it, right? And so all of this happens when we decide to invest in communications planning that will support our paid and organic media efforts. One of the best ways to demonstrate this, you would think, is for me to say, okay, and next here's an example of somebody who did it well. And yes, I will do that. But actually, I think that starting with an example of a brand that really missed the mark is more impactful, because it shows y'all how important designing for influence is. And message. Those builds, they get you every time. Jaguar. We're going to spend a minute talking about this. You guys might know exactly what I'm going to talk about here, but we have to. Jaguar, just like many of us in this room, are up against this challenge where they really need to maintain their legacy audiences, but they also have to grow by capturing and expanding into new target segments. And they are going to do this, especially, I don't know if you've heard this, but Jaguar is moving to all electric vehicles, especially as they do that. So for this brand rebrand, they really leaned into what that might look like. And you know what? They got it right with the audience. They got it right with understanding that the behaviors of their audiences are streaming and scrolling, and they got it right by understanding the channels in which to activate on. But when it came to the content message and the experience, well, this is where they fell flat. Not one Jaguar car or an EV product feature is highlighted in this video. In fact, we're met with an avant-garde type fashion show, right? That really leaves audiences quite confused. They want to see more. And so this confusion, and don't get me wrong, is a great way to spike brand interest. We saw a huge incline to their website as they talked about. However, if you look at sales or revenue over the last year, it's very clear that they were not able to design for influence. However, British Airways, they understood the influence assignment. They made it clear that they knew their audience, their behaviors, and the content experience. So let me just show you. We are instantly grabbed by this less is more activation. It takes just seconds for our brains to understand that this is British Airways, even though we can't see a logo and we can't see the full brand name. And I think perhaps maybe the most strategic part of this is that British Airways understood that the way to influence their audiences of commuters and tourists and travelers the most is to capitalize on the moment of pause that out-of-home placements provide. So think about the subway, think about commute to work, think about walking, and in that moment of pause, they're gonna look up and they're gonna see those passengers in that window and they're gonna see this moment and this expression of wonder and anticipation, and that's gonna speak to their own core travel motivation, which it did, because there was a 73% lift in ad recall among British adults and a coinciding 15% increase in profit. Now, this seems natural, it comes together, you see it, and it's like, okay, yes, we can do that, but it's actually quite hard to get influence right. So we are gonna break it down even a little bit further, and we are going to design for influence together, step by step. And to do that, we are going to leverage the brand of TurboTax. Like many of us in this room, TurboTax has several different audience segments, but one segment in particular has been growing increasingly fast over the last several years and has a big opportunity for TurboTax. And that is the gig economy worker, AKA the side hustle audience. If you think about this audience and you think about having perhaps a full-time job, but you also have a couple side gigs on the side, you can imagine that when it comes time to tax season, there's even more terror and overwhelm than we already have, right? And so we need to make sure as TurboTax that they are showing up in those moments and understand their audience so they can meet that overwhelm, be on the channels that are gonna most influence, and really showcase that they want them to take action. And so, back to what Mike and Matt were talking about, the first thing that we have to do is understand of their behaviors, where are those happening, and what is the percentage across that funnel or across their journey. As you can see here, it appears that they all play a role. However, if you look at the blue, you're gonna see that searching plays a very large role in decision-making and influence when they're on there. But we can't stop there, and the reason being is because when we look further at searching, it's not just the traditional channels of Google and Bing that maybe we think about, but think about our own behavior that's evolving today. It's important that we understand that there's more affinity for the gig economy worker to turn towards AI chatbots like Gemini, especially when they're asking questions, and to turn to social search, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube. That is the search ecosystem today, and we have to understand how that plays a role. Otherwise, we're missing the mark. And so because we can't be here all day today, even though I would love to, I love talking with y'all, we're just gonna zero in on designing for influence for 2 touch points within the search behavior across the funnel. And we're gonna do that by starting with a search channel that was not even part of our plans 2 years ago. Isn't that wild, you guys? What? We're like part of this whole big moment. And that is AI search. And if we think about the gig economy worker, they're likely gonna turn to Gemini or ChatGPT and they're gonna say, I wonder, what is the best way to file taxes for a side gig? If TurboTax is not there in the moment, they miss out. They have missed out on the moment of influencing that audience. So what does it take to get there? It takes what we all have done, which is SEO, search engine optimization, because you know what? The most helpful, qualified, and relevant content that is ranking in traditional engines today, Google, Bing, is a large part of what fuels the brand visibility in AI results. Of course it is. It's relevant. It's helpful. They're not going to recreate the wheel. But we also need to lean into GEO, which is generative engine optimization, because that's where we're going to start to understand that we have to do more tactics, like understanding all the different brand questions, and we have to answer them so that we can be part of the narrative in these results. But guess what? Still not done. Brand mentions across the web today are a search authority factor. So we need to build brand authority and search authority by leaning into media relations. We need to lean into brand media, influencer. All of that works together. Gone are the days where it's just a singular focus. We have to break down the silos. If we haven't yet already, now is the time. Back to that gig economy worker. Got on a little tangent there. The next thing they're going to do when they understand and learn about TurboTax is they're going to turn to another search channel, because now they just have high-level information. They know maybe 2 different brands that maybe could help them. And so when they turn to TikTok and they now start to ask, hey, what's the best tax software and solution for a side gig? If TurboTax can show up here, they validated that credibility and they have landed the deal. This is so important. What does that take? Social SEO. Optimize the content you put on social channels to be found when somebody is looking. Otherwise, you're missing the mark in that way. It also will take influencer activation, because you know what? Your brand, even though some might think so, is not always the most valuable voice. And lastly, just like with most content, especially in today's world, it takes paid amplification to make sure that we're getting that awareness, to make sure that we are having that engagement and we're getting those sales. So with these quick examples, we were able to design for influence, and we were able to do that by learning more about our audience, the gig economy worker. We understood that their most relevant and influential behavior was searching in combination. I know we focus just on searching, but I have to say out loud, in combination with the other channels like scrolling and shopping and streaming. That was up there. It really needs to be focused that way. And then lastly, we understood that we have to have brand authority within that filing taxes for side gigs audience. This is how we can maximize influence to maximize impact. You guys, the world is changing so fast. Algorithms are changing overnight. Linears aren't, or linears, I did that yesterday too, and I knew I was gonna do it today. Journeys are not linear. And that means that influence must be our compass. And that takes communications planning, focusing on all those things we just talked about to support our paid and organic media activations so everything comes together. Because today, with everything we've got going on, influence is key. Everything else is just noise. You need to design for it. And that means you really have to take the time to plan for it. And you have to measure it to win. Thanks, everybody.
So that way.
Yeah.